rolling.
I'm Al Bandura, and I'd like to talk briefly about a line of work that I'm doing on the mechanisms of moral disengagement. The thing that puzzled me, if we look at the work on moral agency, most of the work is centered on how you develop moral standards. And so we develop standards of right and wrong. And these serve as guides and deterrents for transgressive conduct. And so the assumption was that through these moral standards, we do things that give us a sense of self-worth and pride, and we avoid violating our standards because it'll lead to self-censure, and so we bring our behavior in line with the standards. Now, the thing that puzzled me is that most of our large-scale inhumanities are perpetrated by people who, in other aspects of their lives, can be compassionate and humane. And so the challenge here was to explain why good people can do cruel things. And so the adoption of standards is only half the story, and really the less interesting half, because these moral standards do not operate as unwavering regulators of behavior. We have the talent to selectively engage and disengage our standards. And in fact, a person can be exceedingly compassionate and empathetic and cruel at the same time. For example, you have a commandant on a prison camp who is dictating a letter of extreme empathy and compassion to his ailing father, and he glances out the window and he sees an inmate there who he feels he isn't working hard enough, and he whips out his revolver and shoots him. So here, in the same instance, he is remarkably compassionate and empathetic, and at the same time barbarically cruel. And so the difference here is, who do you include in your category of humanity, and who do you exclude from your character, from your category of humanity? And so the work that I've been conducting is to try to specify what are the mechanisms by which people can selectively engage and disengage their morality. And so we've centered on 8 different mechanisms. 3 of them operate at changing detrimental behavior into good behavior. And the most powerful one is moral justification, that what we do is use moral and worthy ends to sanctify destructive behavior. And Voltaire put it well when he said, if you can lead people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities. And so we do a lot of killing in the name of religious principles, political ideologies, national imperatives, and so on. Another mechanism that transforms the behavior is we use sanitized languages in euphemisms and convoluted language that masks the injury we are causing. A third mechanism is through advantageous comparison, where our own inhumanities look minor when compared to more egregious inhumanities. So you'll have a terrorist who identifies with a population that he feels is being grossly mistreated, and he sees his behavior as martyrdom, and so on. Though these 3 are exceedingly powerful because they not only disengage your morality from destructive behavior, but if you buy into the justifications, it also engages your morality in the mission. Then the other two mechanisms are to muck up the sense of agency for destructive behavior, and this is through displacement of responsibility and diffusion of responsibility. And we often cite the Milgram experiments as one in which, in the displacement of responsibility. But in real life, that's not the way in which authorization occurs, because no authority wants to issue destructive policies directly. So what we have is surreptitious authorizing, where you use mazy structures of authority, so that, and you build in deniability into those authorization systems. And so when because one, you don't want to be held accountable if the policy fails, and two, you have to live with yourself and you don't want blood on your hands. And this is why we have mazy systems of non-responsibility. And if an incident happens that's problematic, then this is treated as an isolated incident, and then you blame the subordinates for either misunderstanding or being overzealous. The other thing about the Milgram experiment is the authority was there and commanding them to do that, and also accepting responsibility for any harm that occurs. In effective systems, you want to put out good functionaries who will do it when you aren't around. And so here you have to distinguish between two levels of responsibility. The functionaries honor the authority with regard to the policy, but then they don't assume responsibility for their destructive behavior. So through surreptitious sanctioning and through this double allegiance, you have very effective functionaries even when you aren't around. The other is diffusion of responsibility. And there are three ways in which you do this. One, through group decision making. Two, through fractionating the activity. In isolation, it looks pretty innocent, but collectively, it's quite destructive. And three, through group action, so that you can, and anonymity, so you can always claim that the other folks really were more responsible for this. And Napoleon once creatively said that collective crimes incriminate no one. And then the third mechanism has to do with dealing with the consequences of your actions. So if you deny or you minimize or you dispute the harmful effects, then there's no reason why your moral agency should even be activated. So a great deal of effort is expended to work on the consequence part. For example, that Pulitzer Prize winning photo from My Lai of the napalm bombing with the girl running probably did more to generate aversion to that war than all the newspaper reports. And so the military learned from Vietnam that you don't allow the press on the field, and so they essentially did that in Bosnia and in Iraq and Afghanistan. But then we had Al Jazeera putting out the destructive effects. The final two mechanisms operate on attributing blame to the victim, and so here you can even feel righteous in that mode. and then you also dehumanize the victims. And if you cast in as subhumans, then this is a good way of restraining any sense of empathy toward them, and you destroy a sense of common humanity. And so the other line of research is really to demonstrate. We've done all this research on the power of dehumanization to bring out the worst in others. And the other line of research I'm conducting is the power of humanization to bring out the best in others.